Well, things are getting worse financially, which is no surprise at all. It's part of the natural progression of this foul disease called poverty. So there's no surprises, and I'm not whining or crying about it. It's something I knew was likely to happen in the event of unemployment. And all this, believe me, I had put countless hours in planning and anticipation for that event long before it happened. So all of this experience is so much different, so much worse if it comes on you suddenly and you hadn't planned and you had no idea it was going to hit you, and it was a bolt out of the blue, and all the typical things most people, go through life refusing to acknowledge a terrible thing might happen to them, so they don't prepare in any way. Believe me, I prepared for that, and it doesn't make it any less painful, don't get me wrong on that account. But there is a difference in knowing ahead of time. I mean, the mental preparedness is put you far and away ahead of somebody else who's going to be in this situation. Anyway, still no job prospects, which is not, nothing surprising there. What I am thinking and considering and bandying around is it's time. I mentioned in an early video, maybe even the first one, I had mentioned that I made a list like 2 or 3 years ago of what order what utilities needed to be disconnected in, which ones I needed to not pay right off the bat, and they were the most expendable, that sort of thing. Well, now it's time for me to do a review of that list and reaffirm that I've written down the right order. If I haven't, then I'll need to change it around. And try to be preparing in that way, because I'm at the point now. I just want to make a point of this, is that not only is the next benefit check already spent, half of the one following that. So for a month ahead, I'm looking at losses that far ahead now. And here's the thing, I reduced my expenditures and liabilities dramatically before in anticipation of all this. And I'm living like a church mouse, and I have been since before I was laid off. I can't imagine the people who out there who suddenly become unemployed and try to continue living that same life that they were living. Back in 2007, 2008, they were already doing documentaries about how fast these people were burning through pensions and retirements and savings, and ending up in a food bank. These written, really, the ones that were interviewed the most were the most affluent people. They tried to maintain that lavish lifestyle after their income was cut off. And the thing is unemployment compensation in any state is designed to starve you into going back to work. And the irony of it is that there's got to be economic policies that create jobs for that not to be a failure, for that political idea not to be a failure. There has to be competent economic policy, and there hasn't been since long before 2007. This has been coming like a freight train for the last 20 years, and governments have figured out what they can get away with, how much murder they can get away with in the financial arena, and every single government has done it. These central banks have figured out that they can steal from the future and print money in reckless abandon. And anything in this world, anything in this universe that there's a lot of has less value than things that there aren't so much of. So when you print money like not just the United States, you can name them off. People love to sit back and really champion China and Russia. Oh, that's just lame brain rebellion. They're doing it too. They're in better shape than we are because they have a manufacturing base and they have a greater export base than we do. That's why they're in better shape. They're doing the same thing though. So until we have sound economic policies that create jobs, all this straight up BS about trying to starve people off, and it's horrible in England. I mean, I've watched a lot of videos on how people are treated in England and Scotland. Their government is absolutely horrible. And we have some states here that are just as bad, like Missouri, that are just as bad about how they treat their unemployed. And they sit there and say, you know, we're going to starve you into going back to work. But by the way, we don't have a competent economic policy that will create any jobs for you to go to. That's the same old story. There's no rocket science to it. The angle about it that disturbs me is the level of lies that the media engages in. As George Bush Sr. put it, voodoo economics. Well, that's voodoo media reporting on these bogus numbers that the news people, there are financial experts that work for the news media that know these are just as well know these are bald-faced lies as anybody else. And they keep going along with this 5% bald-faced lie of unemployment. And I mean, they're even worse. I was in Colorado last year and they claim to have a 3% unemployment. The liars just abound. There are factions that are pushing really hard for honest money. Not everybody's a crook. There are factions that are pushing real hard to get back to honest money and honest reporting. There are people in the media that are frustrated to the nth degree that they can't report the truth because they'll be fired if they do. And there are news organizations who are scared to death to report the truth because they know they won't get any interviews from the politicians. So they play along with this game, and anyway, things are like they are. So, not to just drag it on and on, but anyway, that's where things are at with me. I've made the decision to just take a big dive and bring everything back up out of the red. I'll have to really dive into my savings, which I was trying to hold on to till later, but I absolutely am not going to allow this to snowball on me. I would rather, you're either going to hurt now or you're going to hurt later, and I've worked so hard to get to this point where I can actually not be bankrupt and not be, the difference is, you can be poor, you don't have to be bankrupt. So I'm not going to end up owing a lot of people a lot of money. I'm just not going to live my life that way. I would rather if I'm going to take a nosedive into poverty, I want it to be without owing a bunch of other people money. So I'm going to take the dive, get the money this next week. I'm going to bring it all back up to the surface so I can quit gasping for breath financially. And the gamble, it's not really a gamble. I don't want to say it that way. My hope is that I was saving the money for later. Okay, fine, to survive later. My hope is that I'll have a job before it gets to that point, there's still this time space that I have before it all hits rock bottom. So anyway, that's my plan. These are the things that people, I mean, my gosh, this is what this channel's all about. This is what you go through. This is what you go through when it's like this for you. I mean, it's totally different. Well, I can't say totally. There are many differences in this happening to me when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40, when I was 50, but now I'm 57. Things change, so this is a different experience than it would have been 25 years ago. So these are the things you have to consider. You have to jockey around. You have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And you know what? I said it in a video 2 or 3 videos ago. I thank God that today is not worse than it already is. And I ask God for things to be better tomorrow. And if He decides that the lessons in life for me are that they shouldn't be, then my greatest aspiration is to take what God gives me, whatever that may be, and hold my head up high and live with dignity in whatever situation it is. If you want to, I don't want to get into, I'm not going to get religious. This channel's not about religion. But I will quote the Apostle Paul in the fact that he had said, he had made the statement, I have learned to be content in whatever my situation. And believe me, that takes raw living to ever begin to get a grip on what that means. Anyway, that's it for now. If there's more, we'll talk about more. Keep on plugging.